back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and today's video is going to be a little bit different. If you follow my channel, I think you'll find that all my videos have machining in them. Practically all of them. I've got a couple of older ones where I refinish some cabinets and stuff like that, but for the most part I try to include some machining in my videos. To say this one's going to be a little bit different, this one is to introduce the newest addition to the Tin Barn. This is a Harig Super 612 surface grinder. It has 6 inches on the Z, 12 inches on the X. I've not measured what it's got on the Y here, but it's got a lot of room in there as far as height of material. Today is a Friday. I picked this up on Monday of this same week, about a 120-mile trip down to the western part of North Carolina. Well, not the far western, but actually it's closer to the central, in Lexington, North Carolina. Just down the road from Hendricks Motorsports. I asked the guy if he ever did much for NASCAR, and he said he did a little bit in his shop, but not much. So they did most of that work in-house. But this was a machine shop that had closed down some time back. They had a few pieces of equipment left. One of them was this surface grinder. And when they shut the doors, they literally took a sprayer and sprayed all the machinery, everything down in a coat of oil, just to keep rust from accumulating if it had to sit there in a non-climate controlled environment. And if you're familiar with North Carolina, you know how humid it can get. But in any case, I brought this in the Tin Barn yesterday, got it set up, and washed it from head to toe. The cabinet inside and out, everything here. I did not take the table off, didn't take anything apart, but I did wash all the externals. I got the VFD in the mail yesterday, first time I've ever seen one of those, and I got it wired up, and of course 50-50 chance it's going to rotate in the wrong direction, and it did. Switched 2 wires and that fixed that. But before I set it in place, I wanted to be sure the oil pump worked, and it did. On these Harigs, right up here is a small little sight glass. The oil pump is down here in the bottom of the actual base unit itself, or the base of the machine itself. The oil pump is down here in the back. Pumps oil to the ways, but you can be sure it's working by seeing this level kind of fluctuate as it's running. I'm a little bit low on oil right now. I've got a can came with it that's got just a little bit in there. I'll put that in before I set it in place. But what I want to do today primarily in this video is show you something that I was not able to find online before I purchased this. I was seeking information on how to move it, where to lift from, those kind of things. Thankfully, I got a lot of good response from the YouTube Machinist group on Facebook. But other than that, I didn't really find a lot of information on it. So I want to share that today in the event that somebody else comes up with a situation where they want to move one of these, lift it, how to pick it up, where to pick it up from, how to transport it. And then we're going to put this today on this video as well, consider nothing goes wrong. We're going to put it in its permanent location here in the shop. I just set it out here in the middle of the floor today in front of my toolboxes and everything else, or set it here yesterday to get it cleaned up. So I'm going to pull the camera around and show you the lifting points on it, or show you where to lift from, and little pointers on transporting it. I have you over on the right hand side now, facing the right hand side of the surface grinder. What I want to show you is one of the things that this was listed in the manual too. When I got this grinder, all the original paperwork was with it. It's 41 years old, According to the serial number, it was manufactured in September, or manufactured in the latter part of 1977. The warranty card was actually in the cabinet down here and showed the final inspection being on September the 7th, 1977. So, but one of the things it showed in there, and again, I was told this by some of the members of the Facebook group, was that in transporting, you need to secure the spindle up here. So I'm going to use the down feed here. See, if I remember right, it's got to turn up on the end, the blocks that I've got. You don't want to, obviously don't want the abrasive wheel hitting the chuck. But the purpose of that is just to keep this head from spindle from bouncing around while you're moving. Next thing we want to look at is lifting points. On the Harig, the mill itself, or the surface grinder, is not attached to the base cabinet. It's just setting on the base cabinet. If you'll notice down here, there's a hole. Of course, that goes all the way through. That is your lifting point. You want to be sure, though, before you stick a rod through there, take your flashlight and look up in this hole. There's oil lines and electrical lines running through there. So just be sure you're clear of all those. And I've got a piece of 3/4 inch hot roll picked up from just a hardware store, and run that through. Now that is going to be our lifting point. Now it's not going to be balanced, of course. It's not going to be that perfect, but we're going to secure the strap in a moment. I've got, let's see, this is a 6-foot strap here. We'll run it over there. Of course, over this side. Now, we can lift from that. You want to be sure your strap is clearing this sight glass up here. Your hook's going to clear it so that you don't break it out under any pressure. To secure this strap, to keep the whole unit from tilting over, this is the front of the surface grinder is a lot heavier than the back. Well, I suspect it is. But at any point, this is near center, but it's not center enough to the truss lifting straight up without something in there. Now, I've run my table back to where it's up against the blocks as well. That'll help move the center of gravity back just a little bit. So what we're going to do is take another strap. This is where it would be nice to have 2 hands or 2 people, but since I don't, I'll work it on my own. It's very important that this strap be on there and be good and secure. All right, now that we've got the strap on, I'm going to get the cherry picker, the engine lift, and bring it around to where we can pick up. We're going to pick straight up. What my plan today is to pick this up, move the cabinet out of the way, lower this down onto a furniture dolly, and roll everything to the other side of the shop where it's going to be put in. I'd rather roll it on the furniture dolly instead of that top heavy cherry picker. So I'm going to get that around here though, and we're going to start lifting this up. I'll probably get the camera in a different position as well. Here's just a little better view of how this strap is hooked up here. Again, this is to keep this strap tight against the tower right here so that it doesn't tip over in either direction. I've got the little engine hoist now positioned over it. As you can probably see, I went ahead and added a second strap on here. It's very important that these do not come off, don't slide off or don't break or whatever. And like the guy that wears a belt and suspenders, I've got two straps on there. So I've got everything snugged up. Again, I'm making sure that my sight glass here is clear. I'm going to lift this up, as I say, and move the cabinet out of the way as I can. Maybe roll this back just a little bit, let it down, then go around and get the cabinet in place, get some markings on the floor, and get set up to turn this whole thing around. And like I say, I'll probably use a furniture dolly to roll it to the other side of the shop. We'll see how stable it is. So let's start the lift. And what I like to do anytime I use this is just get weight on the lift. Now let's look at everything. Be sure everything looks secure, nothing's gonna slip out on us. And as always, never pick up any higher than you necessarily need to. Here's another situation where a couple other people would be nice just to help steady everything, but that is, according to the documentation, this unit is 850 pounds, and the cabinet I'm guessing is probably close to 100 pounds or better itself. But suspended on this strap right now is 850 pounds. The biggest dislike of this cherry picker engine lift is the small wheels on it. All I'm doing now is getting them turned around so that they're headed in the right direction, and I don't have to do all that jerking with this up in the air. All right, the wheels are lined up now. All I want to do is roll it back just far enough to clear the cabinet. All right, I'm going to get the cabinet moved over in position, get the surface grinder sitting on the dolly, and then we'll come back and see how good we measured for the spot that it's going to set in. Okay, now I'm turning around 180 degrees from where we were to begin with. I'm over here in the corner now. You'll recognize this from the opening of my videos. Was a set of shelves right here. I've moved them out. I've got the base in place, and while I had it set up at the other end of the shop down there, I did some clearance measurements from the back and each side, verified what was in the documentation. It said give 4 foot from center, both directions, and 37 inches, I believe it was, no, 42 inches for clearance this way. It's going to make it a little bit tight on my desk over here, but I don't spend that much time at the desk other than a morning cup of coffee, so I think that'll be fine. If this works out, I'll try it here for a few months. If it works out, I'll more than likely lift it back up, do just like I did on the lathe, and put some concrete footers for it to set on. Right now it's sitting on the wood floor with some about 3-inch by 4-inch steel plates under each foot. I've got the table leveled, reasonably leveled with just a shop level. Got the base leveled. Once I get the grinder up here, I'll use shims on these feet right here to actually, with the precision level, and to get it as level as I can. Then again, wood floor, come back later and check it and see if it sits there. But I put the surface grinder on the furniture dolly, got it rolled down here. I'm going to lift up again, and it's going to take, I'm going to have to roll this cherry picker some to get it into place to set it back down on here. But hopefully everything will go well. If it doesn't, it'll be documented what happened. All right, that looks like it's down, sitting good and steady. Before I move everything loose, I want to be sure I measure correctly. And I've got room for the table to travel on the X. Oh yeah, I wanted about 6 inches extra over here. I need to tighten one of the legs down there a little bit. Got a little spring in it. Of course, I expected some spring in it being on this wood floor a little bit to begin with, but as I say, if this turns out to be a good spot for it, I will pick everything up, move it over, pour concrete pillows down here, and set it back. So I'm going to get all this stuff out of the way now, and then we're going to come back and we're going to look at what it's going to take to get electrical power to this. This is a 223 phase motor. I've only got single phase out here. I've got 220 pulled to my welder and the compressor, but that's in the other side of the shop. So we're going to power this off of a VFD with a 110 input. So I'll be back shortly. All right, here's the VFD that I decided to go with. I looked on eBay, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different VFDs over there, and I'm sure we're on eBay. And I'm sure they're fine, but honestly, I needed to talk to somebody about these things before I made my first purchase. This is actually the first VFD I've ever even physically seen, other than, of course, on videos. I was surprised at the size of it. About 2 3/4 by 6 by 6. Physically a small box, but I looked on this Factory Masons website. I'll try to remember to put a link to it in the comments or the description. I guess it'll be in the description to their website. And they have this WEG brand, and what I was looking for in particular was one with 110 volt input. As I said earlier, I've got 220 out here in the shop, but I don't have it pulled to this side of the shop. And that was going to be an expense that didn't really want to do unless I had to. So I looked on their webpage and I found this one. It's 110 volt input and 223 phase output, and it's rated for 8 amps. The motor on the grinder here is 2.8. 2.8 amps is what it pulls. This was rated at 8. So I looked it over as I was on their website. Young man come on, I guess young man, on the chat, wanted to know if I had any questions. And I told him I'd like to send a picture of the ID plate on the motor and the stock number for the one that I had found, and ask him if they were a match, if that would work. He said, sure, send it on. So I did. He said, give me a couple minutes. It took him maybe a minute and a half, something other like that. No, not long at all. But he came back, and you know, being the pessimistic, I'm pragmatic, but people sometimes say I'm pessimistic as well. I was expecting them to say, well, no, you need something twice this size. He actually come back and said, well, yes, that will work fine, but you can save yourself about $30, $40 to go one size smaller. And I somewhat paraphrased Tom Lipton and said, well, you know, nothing overbuilt ever broke. And I said, this is the one I'd rather go with. I just feel more comfortable. The other one was rated for 6 amps. This one's rated for 8. So in the top, I had to kind of laugh a little bit when I saw this. You know, everything has a ground location. For the 110 volts, you've got the ground, the neutral, and the line. Well, the ground on this device is labeled PE. Also on the output, labeled PE, Peter Edward. I don't know what that means. It probably has a technical term standing for ground, but the first thing that came to my mind was planet Earth. So I'm going to call that ground. I simply wired in, picked up a piece of cord, put my plug on, 110 in there. Now here's where I went back and reviewed one of Mr. Pete's videos, where he was putting a VFD on a drill press. And I thought I remembered what he said, but I wanted to be sure. This and the manual with this said hook the U wire, the V wire, and the W wire. Well, I went, opened the back of the motor, looked in there was nothing labeled UVW. There's the planet Earth on that side. So what I did was, again, went back and referenced his video, and he points out that other than the ground, these three make no difference. It don't matter which ones you hook up. The only thing to watch for is when you power it up, if the motor turns in the wrong direction, reverse any 2 of these. So I hooked it up and fired it up. I had one parameter to change on this. This has 30-something different parameters you can set, or maybe it's even more than that. Anyhow, a lot of parameters on there, but one of them deals with, let me find the correct term, I don't want to tell you wrong, acceleration time. This by default was set at 5 seconds, and it was tripping an alarm on it at that 5 seconds. So I went in and changed that parameter to 15 seconds. Just an arbitrary number I come up with, and it started up fine. It was going in the wrong direction, so I reversed 2 of the wires, and what I'm looking for right now is I took a picture of it so I wouldn't remember. Okay, well, wouldn't forget. I started out with the planet Earth, the ground, and then my wires are red, white, and black. So following the flag up here, red, white, and I went in the order red, white, black. Red, white, blue, I figured I could keep up with it. That was wrong, so I changed the, or going in the wrong direction, red, black, white. So let me hook those up right quick. When you get old like me, you forget stuff faster than you can say it. Let me look at that color, red, black, white. All right, we're hooked up there. I've pre-drilled me a couple of holes in the wall over here. Now you should be able to see what I'm doing. All right, before I go any further, I'm gonna go look in my electrical box back there, electrical supplies, and get a couple cable clamps and clamp this up in position before we turn power on. All right, I got the cable secured now. All the clamps I had were a bit big for that, so I just used some cable ties, run a screw through them. That'll hold until I can get back to the hardware store. But let's see if it's gonna run. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open up the cover here. And just put a little mark on the wheel. Let me slide the camera around so that you can see that a little better. Okay, I just put a little sharpening mark on the wheel there. So hopefully you can see it as it spins up. We'll plug the VFD in, and on the display RDY for ready. And so let's see, and this probably goes without saying, but you don't use any power switch that's on your device, your machine. You power on and off through the VFD. You can put a remote switch on the VFD if you want to put this off somewhere else, which I may do again later if I determine this is the permanent location here. Probably put this in a sealed box with just a fan in there to get air to it, with a remote potentiometer and on-off switch. But in any case, right now I'm going to use the power, because if you try to use this power switch, you're throwing full load on that VFD all at one time, and that was what tripped the first alarm. So when I hit the on button here, wheel should start turning, in the right direction, hopefully. It'll take it 15 seconds to ramp up to full speed. Now, I don't know about y'all, but that's a mighty quiet motor. Seems mighty quiet to me compared to my mill and my lathe. That was one of the things that impressed me when I went and looked at it. And then as we turn off, and it's also got a power down time of 15 seconds as well. But any drag, of course, will stop that. So it's hooked up and in place. Now I've got several little projects that I need to do on the lathe, or excuse me, on the surface grinder. One, the knob on the chuck handle is gone. There's a little play in that, but I can get along with that for right now. And maybe another project one day, but I do want to get this knob made as soon as possible. Up here on the fine feed, and I really don't know the difference between the Harig 612s and the Super 612s, but I've seen several pictures online, and some of them have this fine feed and some of them don't. This wheel, of course, is the major feed. Let's see what that is, 50 thousandths per revolution. Then one of the things I need to make is a little brake knob. The only thing that's in here now is a 1024 socket head cap screw, but you tighten that down and I just want to make a thumb one there. And then you use the fine feed. 1 revolution is 2/1000ths on there, so half a revolution, of course, 1/1000ths. And it's marked in 1/2,000 increments on here, so it's got a very fine adjust. But I need to make that knob for that. And also down here on one of the hand wheels, the major part, or the handle on the hand wheel, part of it's missing. I don't know whether this was all made together and this is just something somebody put in there, or whether there's a pin inside this one just like that one. But that will be something to fix or replace as well. So I think that's probably going to conclude this video. Next one you see, there will definitely be some machining in it, but I did want to get this out there and make it public for anyone else that may have the need to know on how to lift one, how to move one. I don't know whether I mentioned it earlier or not, but in doing some reading online, I found out ahead of time, or one of the questions I asked some of the people on the Facebook group was the machine bolted down to the base? The Harigs are not, but it's as simple as opening the cabinet door and feeling in there to see if there's any bolts. If there is, remove them. If you've got holes in the back of your surface grinder, like this one does, like I showed before, that's the lift. Just don't forget to put your straps on. So hope you've enjoyed this, and again, I hope it's some use to others that may have an opportunity to pick up a smaller surface grinder like this. So take care, and I'll see you on the next video.